Hello and welcome. We're doing another creator spotlight, this time with our beloved George Higgins. George has been our pal since we were in college, and you may recognize his face from the Land of Eem actual play. George was kind enough to, after a long, busy day saving lives, jump on this recording so that
Thank you for your service, dude.
It's a team effort. I got to thank all my people from the ground up who helped me help kids.
Yes. And so thank you for jumping on with us. We wanted to talk to you about your process. I mean, for those of you that don't know, we've got a Kickstarter campaign running right now for the Dungeoneer Adventures beginner's game and Underlands Sandbox setting, 2 double expansions for the Land of Eem core game. And George is going to be writing one of the stretch goals for the campaign, a Land of Eem adventure, his first of 6 hexes, which
I've promised before.
Have become legend on the actual play.
He's already written it. It's called Dreamwake Gully.
I wasn't sure if you guys were implying I was going to write something else, and I was very excited at the prospect.
I'm sure you will.
We've known George for years. So it's been 20 years now that we've known George.
Oh my God, we're so old.
Holy cat.
Right, because it was 2020. I mean, what, was the first year of college, or it was like 2020, 2022?
2020. And 2002 is when we all went to college first. We probably met a couple years after that. I remember the first time that I met you was in our creative writing class. And the first time I noticed you is when you were playing World of Warcraft in class. And I would see your screen. I was sitting behind
I did not sit in the back like a smart person. I was like midway up towards the front with a laptop fan going crazy.
Yeah, the
learning
fan was
how to be
so
a game
loud.
writer.
It was like our teacher, Olivia, our professor, who kept taking. And back then, George, you were writing a lot of stories about demons and samurai.
It's like heavily like Rurouni Kenshin, I think is what he kept saying my inspiration was, which, I do love me some, but
you were
all original ideas.
What was your primary influence back then?
Probably like anime and sci-fi, because I love you some Trigun. I thought Trigun actually was one of like my favorite. Fastest Stampede is one of my favorite characters because he's so goofy and so ridiculous with like a very reasonable honor code, and he's so capable. I love that. And I honestly feel like that at work. Like I'm just a big goofball. I go around like cracking wise all day, but like I feel like I'm pretty good at my job.
George Higgins, a goofball? I don't believe it.
Who is this guy? Pshaw.
So when you went into college and you chose your major of creative writing and Asian American studies, what was the path to you taking creative writing?
The easiest thing possible.
Okay, but why was it? I knew you were going to say that because you've said
Why is it easy? Because so many people struggled with it.
Right. No, I'm not good at it. I'm not doing that for a living, right? Like I'm too much of a coward to commit to that. Like truly, I think that people who do creative writing or who are creatives in general, we are. No,
wow. Wow, Ben Costa, you poleaxed me just now.
Yeah. I truly believe it's a difficult thing to do, right? I admire people whose commitment to doing that is so great that they put it all on the line, right? Like I could never do that. But when I was in college and we were, I just started taking electives, and I've always been a great reader. Great in terms of like I loved reading and consuming. It wasn't necessarily like better than someone else, but I loved consuming literature and books and media in all formats. And English creative writing was a natural fit because I was like, I love writing about like whatever I want to write about, and like doing my Dungeons and Dragons backstories and then workshopping those in class instead of, having to write something different and then workshopping the same story over and over again.
George is notorious for his like long Dungeons and Dragons backstories.
Terrible. Yeah.
No, it's
They've
great.
been truncated.
No, it is great.
Amazing.
They're always like multi-plot point, like deep-seated backgrounds that, they're page turners.
And they're filled with so much fodder for a GM to use in the campaign.
But that's the goal, right? Like I feel like it's so unfair to a GM who's putting like their brain out there. Like if you don't give them something, right? It's like a symbiotic relationship. Like I have to give you something to get something in return.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Okay, so
did we even answer the question? I'm sorry.
No, yeah, you did.
Okay.
So then you never seriously considered pursuing creative writing or writing as a profession?
You went
into editing a little bit.
Yeah, I did editing and proofreading because I thought that was probably a more steady gig. It's just they ended up laying off our whole proofreading department and outsourcing it to a different state. which is, their prerogative. But I felt like, and then I was doing things like translating for the Korean comic book company on the side, which was not that I speak Korean, but my boss would tell me like, hey, this is what this means, but can you like make this idiom work in English?
Yeah.
And it was like,
I did the same thing for Viz on the Pokemon books.
Yeah. Like it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. I loved the whole, taking someone's idea and Americanizing or anglicizing it, right? Making it consumable or consumer friendly, but still trying to maintain the nuance of what it might be in that language. Yeah, and the meaning, which was very difficult because
the translation that is often very, what's the word?
Je ne sais quoi.
I'm trying to say like word for word. It's like,
well, like one example was you're trying to cook peas with lightning. It was like because like you're trying to like do this thing. Yeah, like that was one of the idioms.
Translation is what I was trying to say.
I see what you're saying. I see. Yeah,
although cooking peas with lightning feels like something a wizard might do in the Land of Eem.
Right. Like it's just you're just tired of it. He's like, wham.
I'm hungry. I got it.
Yeah, overdid it again. But I went into proofreading and editing, and I enjoyed it, but I felt like when you're editing along with a style guide or a guidelines and things like that, and you're trying to respect what the author's intent is, or even if I was doing advertising at the time, even what you're trying to put out there as a consistent product, it can be so idiosyncratic and picky. Like I hated working with other people on it. Like I hated having a client and back and forth because that wasn't for me. Like they would say we wanted this way, and I'm like, that's like just wrong outright, and they're like, we don't care, and I'm like, it's your brand, but now I'm in trouble for not protecting your brand and all those things.
So how do you feel about protecting the Land of Eem brand, George?
I knew you were going to say that.
I do such a stand-up job.
Adventure.
Review my hex right now.
What I appreciated was that you took the time to like dive a little deeper on the lore and backstory of Dungeoneer Adventures Book 3 and kind of weave aspects of that into the world. That's not really something anyone has yet to do except you.
That blows my mind. Like you guys have a huge, like vast swath of source material that, I mean, how can I could never feel good plugging in something into your world and just saying, this is how it is. Deal with it. Like
this is what I think makes George Higgins unique. And I'm going to tie this back to your character backstories because
flatter me more, please.
Everybody that's done a Land of Eem adventure so far has mostly followed tone cues primarily and then created, using certain elements like folk and maybe a few places here or there. But what you did is you actually tapped into pre-existing lore, which it was unique for an adventure. And we won't give any spoilers, of course. Like you have to wait for us to.
That's a stretch goal.
That's a stretch goal. Piling on what Ben said, like what was it like? Essentially, an intellectual property that existed already.
Yeah, I mean, you know the world well enough, but you don't. Like, and I clearly have always made it a point of pride that I never have read any of your books. I've just played years and years
and like direct public backlash by people like.
Yeah, they're just like, are you serious? And I'm like, no.
You read the first Rickety Stitch, right?
I did read most of the first Rickety Stitch, which is even more insulting. But I have read all of Dungeoneer Adventures, and I've almost finished rereading it to my son. He gets way too interested in eating the book, though, so we're gonna have to like.
Oh, you read all three Dungeoneer Adventures?
It's the first one. That was my research.
He's in the process.
I read the third one.
It was too much. No, it's not too much. It was just. I thought I only read through I read through the first one to get an idea of like the adventures in, the Underdark and what that world is like.
You were actually texting me the play-by-play of like, what?
Right. Like, hey, this is crazy. Like, I loved it. Yeah. I think that but back to your question, approaching an intellectual property that already exists, I think that it made it a lot harder because I have a tendency, like, as you guys.
You're a world builder.
No. Yeah. And I get lost in the weeds. Like, I get obsessed with like, hey, I want to bring this one stupid creature that's really like irrelevant and doesn't matter. I want to bring that to life in my thing. Then I realize the word cost of that and it becomes problematic. But like, I love taking the lore and saying like, what else belongs here? Like, what else is interesting? Like, what piques my interest? When I was reading Dungeoneer Adventures 1, I was taking copious notes of like, Gargle beasts are like this is like that, like the mushrooms are like that, like this city exists, this is how they interact. And like, I loved what you had already written. So I think that it really would have done a disservice to just, again, try to plop something in without any intention. as it were, right? Like when I started trying, I thought it was interesting when I started trying to make certain things like Dream Mist or things like that, and tying it back to the Wishing Stone, not giving too much away. Like I found that you guys had already done something along those lines, and that we were in some ways simpatico on the way we were thinking, and that was even more exciting because it's like unraveling your secrets, but like also my thought process. Like I'd love that we arrived at similar things because there's already something along those lines. So I had a ton of fun pulling things together, but then I became really distraught when I realized I was like so over word count because I love filling in the blanks. And that's really tough for me.
You were kind of building a larger area, not only like a town, but also the surrounding areas, which is, I think, larger than the scope that we've done for our adventures so far.
It's bigger than the Underlands Sandbox.
Yeah, George's Hex is 570 pages.
Actually composed of 7,000 hexases.
7,000 hexases.
So what's cool about George's adventure, I'll just say, is that you could plop it anywhere, like it's in the fungal jungle, like any hex, and it'll be cool.
I think it would. Yeah, I think that's what I like about the hex system, and I think that. So how do you guys do it with other people's? Is it like a random encounter would send you a place, or that they all have like static hexes?
It depends. Like there's a lot of different flavors of how creatives approached each of the adventures. There's hex crawls where
He
did a hex crawl, but then there's also straight adventures. Amir did an adventure that takes place in the Quagmash, so you like are taking advantage of all the random encounters there. But there are like story beats, and
we take an approach of trying to place adventures in each region. So you took the fungal jungle.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know anything about the fungal jungle except for I love the concept and the name, and then that's why I had to read Dungeoneer Adventures 1, like it really was just like, I don't know what really is going on there. But I think that, like, I remember when I originally pitched you guys, I was saying, like, I want to do a Stardew Valley. And it was originally going to be, like, I wanted to create a city or a place where the adventurers can come and they can, automate or grow or whatever, or do things along those lines and then have a steady source of income. Because I think one of the things that really frustrates me about all tabletop RPGs in general is, like, I feel like you can't set up passive income sources, or like no one wants to work a mundane job. That's not what we do this for.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're adventuring, like maybe you get a ton of good gear. Like we've gotten some crazy gear, but maybe you don't get a lot of ancient coins or something. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I wanted to create a place where people could, not set and forget it, but like set it, come back and then reinvest. And then
I will say though that it changed from that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it became more about the story and less about that. And I think you could still pursue something like that in the future and execute on the Stardew Valley.
In Hex 2 of 5.
Well, I mean, that's why I think I wanted to spend so much time building out the city and the surroundings, because I wanted it to be, well, you come in and you clean up this hex, and then in the next iteration of like in Hex 1.2, like you can come back here and it's a thriving, bustling town, and then you can do that thing. But that's just like a little too grandiose. You know what I mean? Like, but I wanted to set like a basis. Like I wanted to set up a backstory and like have people there, and then that just became the focus of the hex, which was developing it, and then how do the PCs come and what do they do to save this town that has fallen into despair.
Yeah, it's a cruel idea. It's funny we're talking about this because just recently on the Discord, folks were talking about developing like a house or like a home or like some home in Land of Eem. There's questions about how to approach that. We have some like little rules, and there's definitely like abilities that is for like Dungeoneer where you could like leave your dungeon. But it's interesting that your first creative impulse was to create some place like this that could be invested in with an adventure, and then a place that characters can return to, which I still think exists in Dreamwake.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I hope that people who play the tabletop RPG in the long run benefit from. It's like being able to return to an area, not necessarily what I've created, but I hope that the GM and the players themselves can continue to keep up with, hey, this is how this has changed. Because like that's I love the growth of the world.
The consequences of
players' actions and permanent changes that they manifest.
That's what makes the world feel real.
Yeah, like I'm playing Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remake right now, and that's a game where you have all these beautiful, wonderful cities, but you do something and you've changed interaction with one person, and then You go back to the city and it's the same thing, or nothing has really changed. And that's clearly hard to do in a video game because it's a program at all. But in a tabletop RPG, like that's an advantage, right? All it takes is a GM with a great memory or players with a great memory and who are invested in like the growth of this city and region. That could become your whole campaign, or it can just be something you come back to when the campaign's fizzling, right? Like that's what makes this so fun for me.
Right. So you mentioned you started out with the Stardew Valley concept. And it shifted from there. So what made it shift? Like, what was the thing that sort of changed the trajectory of the adventure?
I think it was like I was a man with a ton of ideas, but when you try to put
I was just a man with a ton of ideas.
No, a ton of ideas.
I'm a guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you try to put mechanics to the idea, like it becomes so difficult. It's like like you have all these words and you don't know how to form sentences, basically, because there's a specific ways and rules to approach this sentence formation, right? And I think that's what gave me pause. Is like I don't know how to gamify this and make it fun, because like I can word dump a region and like go figure it out. And that's
so what you're saying is you want to collaborate on the Stardew Valley idea, and we'll bring the game design element to it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'll figure it out.
I got 5 more hexes in me.
Yeah, you definitely got 5 more hexes plus a mega hex. It's fine.
Define mega hex, because I'm interested now.
It's just a bigger hex, dude. No. All the hexes.
What you're talking about is a hex.
Yeah.
A mega hex is 6 hexes within a hex.
If you complete all 6 hexes, it unlocks a mega hex, right? And it's just obvious.
Which is a mega dungeon.
So what I will touch on right here is that George, he is an idea guy, and he gets a little protective of his ideas. You see,
I am a Prima Georgie. I think Prima Georgie was the term bandied about.
Prima Georgie is my favorite nickname for you. That's ever been conceived in 20 years. Prima Georgie is amazing.
But it was, and this is, I don't want people to take this out of context if you haven't heard this expression before, but it was fun to kill my babies, right? Like that whole concept of like the darlings that you want to grow and create, like, and you have to just say like, that's not what we can do with this, or that's not a direction I take. And in doing so, and even just like back and forthing with you guys, the editing process, right? The editing process against both of you who are excellent editors, but B, like masters of your domain, right? You're masters of Land of Eem, and having your guys help to pare it down and focus it. And as I kept trying to reapproach and figure out where it should go, it started taking a little bit of a darker turn in a way that I thought, not like, like horrific, but it was just, I figured out the tone that I wanted it to be. And that took a lot of getting to, because originally it was not going to be that way. It was going to be more lighthearted, and now it's more not somber, but just more of a serious adventure in a way.
Yeah, more is at stake than originally
intended. Yeah.
Ben and I can both relate to that, because we've definitely seen ideas start in one place and end up somewhere completely different, and be better for it, even though just gets left on a chopping block. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's interesting with your guys' creative relationship, which has been existing for God knows how long. Was it like second grade?
It's been like 33 years, something like that.
Everybody always has to do the calculation to make me feel old as the hills.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's the benefit of being close collaborators for so long, because you can edit each other without prejudice and malice, right? Like it's hard for me to get edited because I'm like Ben was saying, I'm protected because like I know what I'm trying to put out there, but I'm failing to achieve it in a manner and then as a very proud person, you hate failing to achieve your vision. Like I bring that mentality to like writing. Like, you can't fail at what I'm trying to put out there, but it's difficult especially since I haven't been writing for how many years. All I would do is like every year, maybe do a backstory. I don't write anymore. If anything, I'm writing preoperative evaluations on people, which is very like, not descriptive.
Yeah.
They're very, very, I use things like words like, thus we are going to the operating room in the setting.
It's a great word.
But yeah.
There were some words that crept in from your like medical field into this, and
oh my god, yeah. When Stuart had,
I laughed when our editor was like, "No one knows what this word means."
Yeah, they're like people don't say that, and
I don't think that they manufactured tetracycline anymore.
It's just like I think that when I was young, I think that one of the things I loved about reading is you'd encounter something you'd just never read before, a word you'd never seen before. And instead of being put off by it, I was like, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. And I think that, not saying our editor did a disservice, but we do ourselves a disservice by editing too much for simplicity's sake. But what he was doing was editing for the sake of clarity and composure, which is totally valid. There's a balance.
That's his job.
Yeah. It is his job. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. And we're sitting here as scraps at the table, you know?
Yeah, James and I are used to being edited. Like, you get used to it. Like, you let go a little bit. Obviously, there are some things that you're like, well, no, that can't be changed. But you got to give in a little bit and let go. And as you said, kill your darlings sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is just, it's a tough, I think that's one of those things where, truly, like, I suffer because I'm not in the creative world anymore, and that makes me sad. But I appreciate that you guys even gave me the opportunity. Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I love playing weekly games with you guys. Like, this is a creative outlet that flexes a side of my brain that I don't use every day at work.
Well, we're not just doing this out of nowhere. Like, you know, we went to school with you. We know. We read your stories. We know you.
I know.
Write.
Yeah,
you read the one story I kept workshopping over and over again because I was so lazy, guys. I was lazy to sit out there.
But you've also wormed your way into the Land of Eem
and hearts. And your heart, like a heartworm.
Horrible way to put it.
Yeah, no kidding. Ben, are you trying to say I'm not welcome? It was just like worm my way in.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is unprecedented.
This is the part of the creator spotlight where we attack our beloved Georgie.
You wanted to interview me? No,
you've made yourself a cornerstone of Land of Eem, and part of that is because you're a great playtester.
Yeah,
I just show up, man. I just show up.
Well, like early in the design of and I'm always interested to know like what's working for you and what doesn't work for you. What are you attracted to? What ability would you never take?
Yeah.
And, all that type of stuff. So like a lot of your feedback went into the early design of Land of Eem.
For sure. Pushing boundaries, pushing against the barriers that exist for abilities and gameplay. That's super valuable.
I think that was I think it's difficult, right? I'm just one man, but like I'm a man with opinions, and I there are things I see and I like and I don't like. But my favorite is when I revisit an ability that you guys have left in, and then I begin to see why you left it in. Does that make sense? Like something where I'm just like, I don't get it. I would never do that. And then I'm like, oh man, no, I can see that with this now. If I make this character, right, like as I grow as a role player, right,
particular scenarios or situations emerge like in the gameplay in the sandbox where suddenly like, oh, I now understand the basis of this power is for the 500 instances of this in the game.
Yeah, well, I think that was the thing I had to really grow past as a role player too. Is like hey, I'm going to use this creative power that's very open ended. I'm going to use it the same way every time. Like it was like very hard to get past that because it works and it's so boring. And then one of the things I love about playing with James and now Peter as well is like you try different things. And
literally, we just talked about this for like 40 minutes.
Oh, did you? Oh, no.
That exact topic, which is great.
Please air this first before you air the other discussion. Yeah.
I don't think
we'll make a note right now that George had no idea about the podcast episode and brought this up because he has the foresight of a wizard.
Yeah, that over here, he's a sorcerer. Get it as a sorcerer.
He's a sorcerer.
Did any of that like actual play and play testing experience that you have under your belt, like years now, any of that like influence writing the adventure?
I don't think I want to say it influenced it consciously, right? Like I'm not going to say like I thought back to a great moment we had and said I want to replicate that moment. Because I have a terrible memory, a great memory for the way I felt about certain things, but I couldn't explain more than that, right? Like, and I think that as we've played more and more, and I've learned what makes Land of Eem fun for me, and I've learned, even in this, right? Like I wanted to railroad from point A to point B, point C, and I had like a very narrow track. And I had to really pull back at your guys' advice and say like, oh, how do we make this more open-ended? Because that's what I love about Land of Eem. It's like we can go to point D first and it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Or you get lost in different points along the way. And I think that just makes me like more excited to write another adventure or write another hex or like be more creative, even if it's not for Land of Eem, right? I'm not saying I'm going to like go farm myself out to some other TTRPG. Like I would never do that too.
Hey guys, I'm writing from Mothership now. Peace.
yeah. Dolmanwood needs a guy.
Yeah.
I'll catch you later.
Yeah. I mean, it is just, but I think that playtesting has really, like, it's flexing a muscle over and over and over again, and pushing past the initial, like the first year of playtesting was rough on because I wanted it. I was still stuck in a rut of how I wanted to be as a player. And I think there was probably more times during those streams where I would get quiet and be unhappy because things didn't go my way, which is like it's a personal growth issue, right? Like we all have to learn to grow.
Syndrome.
It is like I'm all I do is win.
It is.
Yeah, it
I don't
is.
think I
completely agree with
noticed that maybe a couple times, but it's not like a strong memory. I would if you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm self-conscious of it because I know that it's not about that, and I loved my own personal growth. I mean, this is just becoming like a psychology dump session. My own personal growth, yeah, exactly. Like this is the point of interviews, right? The creative point. But I loved growing past that. And I think that everyone who's out there who's starting to write their own stuff or who's starting to play TTRPGs has to really ask themselves, like, what do I love about this? Because there's those power gamers who like love playing and winning and just crushing the competition. And I started playing D&D in college with people who were like that.
Yeah, you were forged in those fires.
I was fortunate. It's like it was 3.5e or 3.5 edition, and I had like 40 PDFs of books, and I had this buddy, Nate Nelson, who was always like he's quite brilliant at putting together like Monk 2, Fighters 3, Paladin 1, like broken classes, and that's how I initially and it was like you'd have these crazy broken builds, and I thought that was so exciting and fun. But at the end of the day, all I wanted was my character to be a samurai with a sword. That was just like what I really wanted. Like
it can be fun.
It can be, but my experience with it is that you lose like the actual like role playing game element of it. Like you lose that, and then it feels more like a tactical skirmish game that you're like playing on a battle map.
It also feels like you can screw up really badly. Like you make a wrong decision, like a Diablo character, you put points in the wrong thing. I want to make a new character now.
That's such a good,
broken forever. Yeah.
So and like. Not being so tied to builds like Land of, like that's one of our goals is just, like anyone can be successful at like having fun in the game.
Yeah. Right. And that's what I was kind of getting at is I had to really grow as a player and learn like what's fun about the game is like the game is, we all want to win, but sometimes it is not a straight arrow as an arrow path to get there. And that is way more fun when suddenly you're at the Welkin Post and you're like, we're going to make a postal service. You know, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you don't have to do that.
Funnily enough, there's No Clear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love No Clear.
About, he's like, his whole campaign that he's running now is centered around players making up postal service and
it's
landing.
Awesome.
Get out. I love it. This is what I miss in Discord. I'm sorry I'm not on there as much as I should be, but you know, I think that's the beautiful thing, right? Like, okay, so going back to critical literary theory with Daware, because that's where we all thought this was going to end up. I remember...
I'm the only one that didn't have Daware, right, Solomon?
It's fair. And you're a better man for it.
I love that Ben is frozen in that laugh because it's great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're back now. Yeah.
No, it was good.
Can you repeat that?
I said getting back to critical literary theory with Daware, where, I remember it was like Wolfgang Iser was talking about how like the text is a living thing, right? Like when you read War and Peace and I read War and Peace, the text is a thing that never changes, but my interaction with it and what I take from it is different every time. Every every and, every Land of Eem, every anything, right? It's like colored by your own perspective and the way that you interact with that text. And I love when people bring what they have to a sandbox like, and then the way that they interact with it and break it and mold it. It's like mods in games, right? Like you take like The Witcher 3, you mod the heck out of it, or Skyrim or whatever, and you get a person's vision in this world that you've created. And that's what was like super fun about doing a TTRPG module. I just have to know how to like write and mod it, modestly, not even greatly. And you have that tool right there, that creativity, that imagination that you can put on paper and then learn, like I learned together with you guys, how to gamify that in a way that is interesting and not too handholdy, that gives players agency and freedom, but is also will lead you to a point in the story.
The ideal of like once you write something, it doesn't belong to you anymore is something that I think about all the time.
Oh, interesting.
Like once my pen has left the story, it's not mine anymore. But like the reader makes their own. Like they imagine the characters the way they want to. They imagine the emotional impacts the way they want to. It's like they're interpretation of the work is totally different than mine, but that's fine. And TTRPGs are an engine for that. You just give the pieces, all the components, and then boom, everybody makes it their own. And that's why it's
And people will go through my module, hopefully, and while the end goal is the same, what they take away from it will be different, and how they felt about it. And maybe they came in underpowered, maybe it's overtuned. But the beauty of Eem is, like, you can't clearly fail your way through the entirety of it. You have to have some wins here and there, and maybe regroup and reassess the situation. But you can fail your way through Land of Eem and be better for it.
It's not a fisticuffs game where you just end up in a loop slog to beat the dragon or beat the bad guy. In Land of Eem, you could shoot the rope holding onto a chandelier as a creative way to, you got him.
Yeah. And then it catches your foot and drags you across to a different building.
True story.
Oh, man. But I think that it was a real privilege to be able to put stuff together for you guys, because I think it's so much fun to conceive of something and again put it out there and polish it into something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, we're super happy to have you on board and hope that there's 5 more hexes in the not too distant future that you can work on.
They're already done. You just have to let me know when to send them to you.
To fulfill the prophecy of the live stream.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much, George, for joining us today.
Yeah, man.
Creator Spot.
Yeah. No. Truly my privilege to be hanging out here with you guys who are not only my friends, but people I tremendously respect and the things you've produced over the years.
Well, you're very kind. And if anybody wants to see George and us in action to experience some of the stuff we talked about in today's spotlight, check out the live stream. Check out the actual play on our YouTube channel. And there's a ton of material of us playing our personal game. We're not YouTubers. We're just playing our game.
And be sure to check out our Kickstarter going right now, Land of Eem, Dungeoneer Adventures, Beginner's Game, and the Underlands, which George's stretch goal adventure will be paired with. So let's hit that stretch goal, and thanks for checking it out.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you.